Clive is like my father. You know, it all started with him.
Clive Davis put Sean Combs in position. That's what Clive Davis does.
I wish that I had somebody that came in straight, you know, right after I won, that was like my manager now. Somebody who truly cared for me as a person before the music and all of that stuff.
What they did to Fantasia Barrino is just heartbreaking, but it's taken 20 years for the full truth to come out. At 19, she was America's sweetheart, the single mother from North Carolina who couldn't read her own contracts but could move a nation to tears with her voice. By 26, she was planning her own funeral.
A lot of times when you come into this industry, you have people who say they're there for you, but a lot of times they're just there to get what they can get, or because money is involved.
The same industry that built her up had systematically torn her down.
They don't think long run, they don't think future, it's just about right now.
This wasn't just about bad business deals or creative differences. This was about two powerful men, Clive Davis and Sean "Diddy" Combs, who treated young black women like products on an assembly line. Use them, control them, replace them when they break.
So Dawn finished her testimony today. She claims at one point that Diddy had hit Cassie with a skillet and said, quote, he said you could go missing, that we could die.
So how did they almost destroy one of the most powerful voices of our generation? And why is she only now free to tell the truth? Fantasia Barrino had the kind of Cinderella story that America loves. A single mother from North Carolina who dropped out of high school, survived assault, and stunned the nation with her voice on American Idol.
You're going to Hollywood. You're going to Hollywood. Yeah. Congratulations.
At 19, she was a star. But behind that victory was a system she didn't understand, and no one warned her what was coming. What they didn't tell her was that American Idol was just the beginning of her problems, not the end. The show had a pipeline. Winners got funneled directly to major labels, and Fantasia landed at J Records under Clive Davis. But there was no orientation, no handbook, no one to explain that winning a singing competition and surviving the music industry were two completely different battles. And when asked about how he prepares young artists for fame, Clive gave an answer that now feels cold. I don't get involved in their personal lives. That silence, it cost lives. Fantasia later said she didn't have a team that cared about her, only what she could earn. I wish someone had told me, don't buy that car, check your accountant, watch your money, she said. Everybody had their own self-interest. She was a teenager thrown into an adult industry. And second in that system, being mentored by Clive Davis, was Diddy, a man now accused in federal court of intimidation and worse. For context, former Danity Kane singer Dawn Richard delivered a chilling testimony alleging that Sean "Diddy" Combs once issued a disturbing warning about the consequences of disobedience. Richard, who rose to fame under Combs' Bad Boy Records imprint during the early 2000s, recalled being told by the music mogul that people could go missing for going against his wishes or failing to follow his orders. On Friday, May 16th, Richard testified that she interpreted the comment as a threat of deadly consequences and that people could die for disappointing or angering Combs. Now, Clive and Diddy were the architects. Fantasia was just one of the voices chewed up by their machine.
A lot of artists that you see, they look like they have it. And we smile and we come out and we put on a good show. But in real life, some of them are struggling. And we don't have it. I'm just now building myself back up. I lost everything twice.
It wasn't just financial ruin. Fantasia said she felt abandoned. Everybody who started with me, they were gone. Nobody helped me clean it up. I had to do it by myself, she said. That loneliness, that isolation, it mirrors the stories we've heard about other artists in Clive Davis's orbit. Artists who died broke, addicted, alone. And now, with Diddy's name tied to federal courtrooms and his connections to Clive Davis resurfacing, Fantasia's darkest moment is being reevaluated. Was she just another casualty of the industry? Or was she one of the lucky few who lived to tell the truth? Fantasia wasn't just young when she got famous. She was unprotected. At 19, she had no industry mentor, no financial guidance, no one to explain the contracts she was signing or the people she was trusting.
When you got endorsement deals coming, you're on tour, there's so many different money coming in from every different what you raise. So you being 19, you're on the road, they bring somebody and say, okay, this is such and such, nice to meet you, they're gonna be your accountant, and this is, you know what I mean? It's like a fast, everything is so fast.
And everybody has.
But the predators knew exactly who she was. They could smell vulnerability from miles away. Shortly after American Idol, the lawsuit started. Her own father sued her for defamation over her memoir. Her own father. The man who should have been protecting her was instead trying to profit off her pain in court. Then came the label Politics. J Records pushed out her first album, Free Yourself, and it did well. Platinum sales, Grammy nominations. But success in the music industry is a double-edged sword. The better you do, the more people want a piece of you. Her second album flopped, not because she couldn't sing, but because the industry had already moved on to the next big thing. Suddenly, the same executives who were taking credit for her success started distancing themselves from her brand challenges. The money disappeared. Not just once, but twice. That's not bad luck. That's systematic theft. But it went deeper than finances. The industry began rewriting her story. They wanted her to be grateful, not honest. They wanted her to talk about her journey without mentioning the essay. They wanted her to celebrate her success without acknowledging the illiteracy that made her vulnerable to exploitation. When she refused to sanitize her truth, they found other ways to control her. Radio stations were told her songs were too gospel for R&B. Music videos were shelved for being too real. Interview requests dried up because she wouldn't stick to the approved talking points. The message was clear: play the game or be replaced. And when you're a young black woman in an industry run by older white men, replacement is always an option. That's when the real psychological warfare began. They didn't just want her music, they wanted her soul. And they were willing to break her to get it. When Fantasia took on the role of Celie in The Color Purple, she wasn't acting. She was reliving her own trauma. For context, Celie is a character who's abused by her father, abused, silenced, and discarded. And when Fantasia took that role again for the 2023 film adaptation, she almost said no.
Her walk is not an easy walk.
No.
And she carries a lot. She carries everybody. And at the time when I was doing Broadway, I was carrying everybody. And my life was so much like Celie's.
That wasn't an exaggeration. When she played Celie in 2007 on Broadway, she said she carried the pain home every night. Nobody taught her how to come out of character, except for Taraji P. Henson. She wasn't just carrying a role. She was carrying years of unresolved trauma, industry manipulation, and personal loss. And the more you look at it, the more it mirrors what happened to Whitney Houston. Both women had gospel roots. Both were pushed into superstardom young. Both were linked to Clive Davis. Both spiraled under pressure. One didn't survive. So when Fantasia says everybody who started with me is gone, that's not metaphor, that's reality. She was one of the only ones left standing. And with Diddy now facing court proceedings, connected to people like Clive, to artists who died young, to women who vanished from the spotlight or worse, it raises the most painful question of all. How many more were silenced before they could tell their story? When Fantasia walked into J Records after her American Idol victory, she thought she was walking into freedom. Instead, she was walking into Clive Davis's assembly line. Clive had a formula: take raw talent, polish it, package it, sell it. She was a single black mother from North Carolina who sang gospel in church and lived through poverty, abuse, and illiteracy. That wasn't the story Clive wanted to sell. There were things they wanted me to do, and I wasn't comfortable. I didn't want to fake anything. From day one, they tried to reshape her sound, her image, her story. They wanted club hits, not church hymns. They wanted glamour, not authenticity. They wanted a product, not a person. But Fantasia fought back. She was raw, emotional, spiritual. Everything the industry wasn't ready for. And when she refused to fit their mold, that's when the support started disappearing. The same man who built careers was now systematically dismantling hers. Not because she couldn't sing, not because she couldn't sell records, but because she wouldn't become someone else. On August 9, 2010, Fantasia Barrino made headlines for all the wrong reasons. But what the headlines didn't capture, what they couldn't capture, was the quiet storm that had been building inside her for years. The label executives were gone. The managers were silent. The cameras were off. All that was left was a woman sitting in a closet with a bottle of sleeping pills and a bottle of Bayer, staring at her own reflection. "I didn't care if I woke up," she said. "I just wanted to go to sleep. And if I didn't wake up, I was okay with that." 3 days before that, Fantasia had locked herself in a guest room. She wasn't eating. She wasn't talking. She was shutting down, and nobody noticed. Not her family, not her team, not the people who had stood next to her on red carpets or collected checks from her tours. At the time, she was being publicly dragged for allegedly having an affair with a married man. Paparazzi were outside her house. Tabloids ran stories daily. But the truth was deeper than that. The affair was just a match. The fire had been burning long before. Fantasia later revealed that she had written goodbye letters to everyone close to her. To her daughter, Zion. To her little brother, who had been getting in trouble at school. To her estranged brother, Teeny, who was angry over money. To her manager, her best friend, her mother. She placed the notes in a book, made sure they'd be found. "I asked everyone to leave. I went into my closet and I sat there. I looked in the mirror and I just sat for hours." She took the pills. She meant it. And when she woke up in the hospital, angry, groggy, and hooked to IVs, she realized she had survived something she wasn't ready to face. The world found out almost immediately. But what most outlets skipped over was how calculated her industry had become in cleaning up these kinds of breakdowns. Just like so many others. There was always a plan in place to fix the public image, but never to fix the person. She was discharged on the condition that she attend outpatient therapy, and for the first time in years, Fantasia said she stopped pretending. "I was in a room with CEOs and lawyers, and I realized they broke too. I wasn't the only one." But the pressure didn't stop. Within days, she was back in front of the camera. Her album was dropping. The label was depending on her. The tour was booked. They told her to rest, but she knew she couldn't afford to. No protection, no grace, just a countdown to the next dollar. It's not a coincidence that Fantasia's darkest hour came while being managed and controlled by a system shaped by Clive Davis and adjacent to Diddy. The same Diddy now facing a federal trial that may pull other powerful men into the spotlight. Because what Fantasia lived through, that wasn't just her personal rock bottom. That was a warning. And this time, people are finally paying attention. Fantasia's breakdown wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern that Clive Davis had been perfecting for decades. A systematic exploitation of young, gifted black women that the industry hoped no one would connect. Whitney Houston, Deborah Cox, Jennifer Hudson, Leona Lewis, all powerhouse voices, all signed under Clive's watch, all controlled, manipulated, or discarded when they stopped fitting his commercial formula. The pattern was always the same. Find the talent, promise them the world, control every aspect of their career, and when they start to break under the pressure or refuse to comply, replace them. Whitney's family didn't stay quiet about it. They said Clive cared more about market image than Whitney's health or well-being. While she spiraled into addiction, battling demons that fame had amplified, he was planning press releases for her next album. When Whitney needed rehab, Clive was booking studio time. When she needed support, he provided photo opportunities. The same cold calculation that would later abandon Fantasia was already destroying Whitney. But the money kept coming, so the machine kept running. Then there was Jennifer Hudson, also an American Idol alum, also a powerhouse voice. But Jennifer got the treatment Fantasia was denied. After Dreamgirls exploded and Jennifer won an Oscar, suddenly she had the resources, the attention, the full weight of the Clive Davis marketing machine behind her. It wasn't coincidence, it was strategy. Clive didn't just manage artists, he orchestrated competition. He created hierarchies where there should have been sisterhood. The pattern was always the same. Clive would spot raw talent. These women could sing, they had star quality. He'd bring them into his system with big promises and grand visions. But then he would control every part of their careers, what songs they sang, how they looked, how they behaved in public. It was all about creating the perfect product for the market. And if these women ever started to break down under the pressure, or if they refused to go along with the plan, they were quietly replaced by the next big thing. Whitney Houston's story is one that's been told again and again, and it shows just how ruthless this system could be. Whitney was a legend, with a voice that changed the world. But behind the scenes, her family says Clive Davis cared more about her market image than her actual health or well-being. When Whitney was spiraling into addiction and battling deep personal demons, the business didn't slow down.
Any meeting I had with her, any interchange I had with her, she was on top of her game.
While Whitney needed rehab and real support, Clive was busy planning press releases and booking studio time for her next album. Instead of being there for her as a person, she was treated like a product that had to keep moving on the conveyor belt. The same cold, calculated approach that would later abandon Fantasia was already tearing Whitney apart. But because Whitney kept making money, the system kept running, almost indifferent to the human cost. Then there's Jennifer Hudson, another American Idol alum with a powerful voice and undeniable talent. But Jennifer's path was very different from Fantasia's. After Jennifer's career exploded with her Oscar-winning role in Dreamgirls, she suddenly had access to the full force of Clive Davis's marketing machine. She got the resources, the attention, the kind of industry support that Fantasia had been denied at key moments. This wasn't just luck or coincidence, it was strategy. Clive wasn't just managing artists one by one, he was orchestrating competition between them. He created a hierarchy that pit talented women against each other instead of encouraging unity and sisterhood. He made them fight for scraps of attention and resources while he collected profits from all of them. Deborah Cox, a Canadian R&B singer with a voice that many say could rival Whitney's, also fell victim to this system. Her authentic style didn't fit the changing commercial demands, and as a result, she was sidelined. Similarly, Leona Lewis, the British singer who won the X Factor and was given the Clive Davis treatment at first, was quietly pushed aside when market trends shifted. The pattern was clear. Young black women were brought in for their extraordinary talent and molded to fit a commercial ideal. But as soon as they resisted the system, demanded more control over their own art and lives, or when a newer, more compliant artist appeared, they were discarded without hesitation. What made this even worse was how the industry fueled competition between these women. They whispered about who was more talented, who was more marketable, who was easier to work with. These rivalries were artificial, created to keep the artists distracted from the bigger issue. The system itself was exploiting them all. Fantasia's struggles were not a sign of personal failure or weakness. They were symptoms of a system designed to use, compare, and replace women the moment they stopped making money or stopped playing by the rules. The big difference with Fantasia is that she survived. She lived through it all long enough to see the pattern clearly, and now she can speak about it openly. By the time Fantasia turned 40, she wasn't chasing charts anymore. She was chasing peace, and for the first time in years, she was speaking without fear. On red carpets and press tours for The Color Purple, she wasn't just promoting a movie, she was reclaiming herself. The same woman who once nearly died playing Celie on Broadway was now using that same role to tell the world she had survived. She said it wasn't about a check. She turned down the film at first, said no, said hell no. Why? Because she knew what it would force her to face again. The trauma, the abuse, the feeling of being invisible. But this time was different. She had a team. She had a family. She had therapy. She was finally doing it on her own terms. And for the first time in her career, she wasn't afraid to admit how broken the system had been. The industry didn't protect her. The labels didn't shield her. But she made it.
Now that I'm older and I'm wiser, I'm taking it in as all three.
All right, I love it.
Different pocket, different place.
And when asked if this was a comeback, she shut it down. She never left. This ain't a comeback. This is a come up. Fantasia never named names. She didn't need to. Her scars did the talking. But in 2025, with Diddy on trial and Clive Davis's name resurfacing in conversations about manipulation, exploitation, and death in the music industry, Fantasia's survival means more than ever. She crawled out of the hole they left her in. She rebuilt from scratch. She learned to cook her own food, drive her own car, pay her own bills. Not because she wanted to prove something, but because there was nobody left to do it for her. That's the part the industry never expected. They were counting on another breakdown, another overdose, another tragedy to explain away with vague statements and rushed tributes. Instead, Fantasia lived. She watched the machine that almost killed her get dragged into federal court. She watched the mentors and moguls who once seemed untouchable finally get exposed. She watched a new generation start asking questions about contracts, about power, about survival. She doesn't need revenge. She doesn't need to name Diddy or Clive. Her life is the proof. Her music, her faith, her fight. It all speaks louder than the industry ever did. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.